Hey guys, Sebchoof here. If you enjoy RotMG or have ever enjoyed RotMG, grab a snack or a drink and sit back and relax because this will be my most important video I've posted in a while for you. Me saying that the future is exciting might come as a surprise given how this RotMG event is going, Month of the Mad God, and how critical my recent videos have been of Realm. But the reason why I say that the future is exciting is not what you'd expect. Ever since Deca acquired Realm, my optimism was sky high for the game. From the beginning, they seemed really enthusiastic about breathing new life into the game and changing it for the better. My faith in Deca grew to record levels when they started working on the Unity client, given the limitations that Flash had. The hype I had led me to make a lot of sacrifices that I don't regret compared to most of the Realm players. Like for example, I've spent over 5,000 hours, over $5,000 on the game, and the hype of Realm actually got me to try full-time streaming and content creation, where I was hoping that RotMG would carry me to make a living. Though I am loving making content on YouTube and Twitch, making content primarily on Realm isn't realistic because of its current trajectory. If you've been playing Realm at all in the last year, you've probably realized that the community-funded client is extremely unoptimized. Several people spent over $300 for insane loading screens and frame skips that can permanently kill your characters. Just look at the Steam reviews lately. Also look at the system requirements this has, and then look at the fucking system requirements that Apex Legends has. Hello? I meet these requirements and I still experience the same issues that a lot of people complain about. On top of this, updates almost always add new bugs to the game, like game functions not working, like ignoring and locking, and UI bugs, and even bugs that can permanently kill your characters. Like this bug that celebrated the start of Month of the Mad God. Increasingly, updates feel like they're trying to make you spend money as they're locked behind in-game purchases and give you a massive advantage like dungeon modifiers, or they're not properly thought out or balanced in general. If you see anyone with a purple name or glow, by the way, they're also people that have spent money in the Unity campaign fundraiser, but sadly a lot of them lost faith and quit the game. It's also been 1 year since the Exalt client was released, and it somehow got worse in my opinion. You just have to check out the Reddit to see how many people are dissatisfied with the game state. Unfortunately, it seems like Deca is slow to act to constructive criticism. Even when I was a Deca partner, there was such a lack of communication. We had a suggestion channel in the Deca partner Discord, but I don't know if a single suggestion was actually implemented or affected the game, and many Deca partners are secretly salty about the communication with Deca. People also complain at the lack of marketing the game has, but I believe word of mouth for RotMG would be extremely powerful. From the community, I've found an insane amount of people that are just sitting on the sidelines, basically desperately waiting for RotMG to become a good game so they can enjoy it again like they did before. If Deca wasn't doing so well, or if they didn't have the resources, I wouldn't mind that the game was in such a poor state. But if you haven't already researched their background, you'd be very amazed at how well off Deca is right now. Here's a clip from the shareholder meeting of the gigantic company called Embracer, the company that acquired Deca last year.
Deca Games also had a solid quarter with revenues of 146 million at the all-time high in the quarter, and on trailing 12 months basis they are 355 million. Party in my dorm, Realms of the Mad God and Kingdoms of Heckfire has been the main contributor to the revenues in the quarter.
There's not much you can do but to vote with your money. However, one person's change is only a dent in the massive amount of sales that Deca generates. However, I do see a lot of content creators and closed testers staying quiet even though they're secretly annoyed with the state of the game and the changes that are happening. If you truly care for the game as a content creator or a closed tester, you would speak up against the changes or trends you think shouldn't exist. Because by not being outspoken, it's preventing change in the game that's getting somehow more broken and more turned into a money machine. The only chance that RotMG has to change can only be done by you, so what is there to lose? Deca and RotMG has been very fortunate though, because the game is literally unkillable. Literally, Deca would have to take the servers down to temporarily kill it, but then there will just be community hosted versions of it, at least through Flash. You can also see how truly unkillable it is by looking at its history and the Steam charts, because RotMG has always been in a decently alive state, with always actually having over 1,000 concurrent players on Steam. A lot of us will remember the pain this game has gone through. At one stage, multi-boxes were rampant and not getting banned. And also, there was a point where if you entered your pet yard, the character would just get auto-deleted. This is what a real dead game looks like. Two at once wildly popular games that drove to almost 0 players. How is it that the game has never died or had under 1,000 concurrent Steam users, despite it having such massive problems along its existence? It's simple, the game has had a monopoly since its creation. RotMG is incredibly unique. It's the only bullet hell MMORPG that I know of that exists right now, but it's also a permadeath and a roguelike, a challenging fusion of game genres that many people have enjoyed. Even with the insane disconnecting and client performance issues, the game peaked at 3.5k players a few days ago. Can you imagine if like an FPS game or a MOBA game had these issues? If it wasn't a one-of-a-kind game, would it still be alive with these problems or the problems before that I mentioned? Deca can literally do anything with the game and people would still play. That could be the reason why there is over-monetization in the game and a lack of well-balanced and interesting updates. Shatters and Dungeon modifiers had a really good chance to be amazing updates, but the first one turned out to be poorly balanced and not too fun as much as it could be. It can still get fixed though. And the second one is just a blatant cash grab in my opinion. World of Warcraft also had a similar situation. It basically had a monopoly over its genre, and many WoW players say they lost touch with their roots long ago. The developers that is. It seems that with Deca becoming more corporate, they're not trying to make the game better with passion and trying to grow the player base, but it seems like instead they've adopted the main corporate goals of a successful online game, which is player retention and the amount spent per person. For some reason, corporations don't try to make money in the gaming space by making a good product, but instead trying to squeeze as much money from each player as possible through loot boxes and pay-to-win purchases. Imagine how well the game would do if the game had the bare minimum, like a working client. And on top of that, imagine if it had interesting and balanced updates. That's why I was so optimistic about the game before, because that's what I thought Deca's goal would be. Well, imagine no longer. A new era for RotMG players is coming, because it's going to be the first time in history that Realm of the Mad God has had direct legal competitors. Two amazing games that are around the corner that want to explore the lost potential of Realm of the Mad God, and they're going to share the same genres as Realm and the same similar 8-bit art style. Though the difference is that the developers of these games have a burning passion for them. They've both been in development for about 2 years, and the progress they've achieved will make you need to get a change of pants. I've played both games, and they provide a unique spin and interesting differences to the current state of Realm that I'll go through, and their clients were such a fresh feeling of relief from the fucking painful performance of the current version of Realm, where the two games were inspired from. Enough bitching from me though, here are the games. Firstly, Beneath the Nexus. Beneath the Nexus is being developed by the same people that brought you Revenge of the Fallen, which was a wildly popular private server, especially in 2019. From what one of the founders said, there was a brief period where RotF had 1,200 concurrent users, while Realm of the Mad God had 2,400 concurrent users. Since RotF didn't have an issue with bots, they said RotF would have had it higher at the time if you discount the bots. It had a popular YouTube scene at the time as well, which includes trials of the game by popular Realm YouTubers like Calcium and Mothership. God, I wish Realm YouTube videos had these kind of views like they used to. However, as this was a P server, it did get fairly DMCA'd and shut down, and then they started working on their Unity-based game right away. There was many reasons why RotF became popular, like for example a more diverse range of items in terms of rarities and effects, the rarest kind of item being called primals. The game made an effort to make rare items feel more special by attaching unique effects. Like for example, this wand on the screen from this YouTube video has a 35% chance to bleed upon hitting a target for 700 damage per second over 8 seconds. And on top of that, a 10% chance of cursing on hit. RotF also had a rune system, allowing to make your characters more unique. For example, there was a rune that if you had full HP, you dealt 35% extra damage, but if you were missing any HP, you had 35% less damage. They also had a guild system, where if you had more fame, then everyone in the guild would get a loot bonus, or something like that. Now, with their success with Revenge of the Fallen, it's fair to be optimistic with their current project, as they're bringing across aspects that made RotF successful and building upon them. Like for example, example, weapons are even more special in Beneath the Nexus. There will still be primals, heroics, and legendaries, but the effects on them will be even more unique. The dev team said they draw heavy inspiration from Enter the Gungeon, so you can expect some really fun designs. Like for example, they just teased this weapon in their Discord. All of these weapons also have further effects on them. Like for example, there's an effect where if your shots hit enemy projectiles, those enemy projectiles have their damage decreased. And then another one would provide you lifesteal, so depending on how much damage you do, the amount of life or HP you recover. They're also expanding heavily on their rune system. Just like their weapon effects, they're adding even more unique rune effects, like a rune that breaks up your shots after hitting the first enemy and then hitting others. And another example is a rune that gives you many passive negative effects to make up for this, but when taking lethal damage it heals you back to 75% HP and makes you fast and invulnerable for 1 second. These are just 2 of the around 50 they had on testing, and you were able to use many at the same time to create a full interesting build. I've got a full video showcasing almost every rune, as well as some other BTN videos, while their second closed testing was going on, which I'll link down below. But they did say they plan on releasing many more runes. It was so much fun just messing around with the items. Also, the dungeons and boss fights that I've experienced so far have been incredible, like so different to what I'm used to in Realm. All of the dungeons and bosses look super unique and they really take advantage of the 3D aspect in the game, especially in dungeons like Asgard. And if you haven't seen my videos or my streams, the content that I've shown, they said it's only 15% of the planned content for full release. And if you haven't seen my videos or live streams of the previous closed testing session for Beneath the Nexus, the devs said that that was only 15% of the content they have planned for full release. The game also has a grand exchange feature planned, and much more they're being sneaky about. More recently, they also showed their current plans for their HUD, a new quick swap system, and their stash system, which draws inspiration from the Path of Exile style. If you want to keep up with future updates for this game, I strongly recommend for you to join their Discord and subscribe to their co-founder's YouTube channel, where he often uploads updates to the game. Also, when the 3rd round of closed testing gets released, I'll be streaming it and uploading about it, so make sure to follow my stream and subscribe to my YouTube channel. All links will be down below. Now time for the second game, Darza's Dominion. You've probably already heard of this game because they did exist before, and the wildly popular GHZD made a video on them. Please come back. However, back then, they were only a mobile game, but for the last 2 years, they've been rewriting the game on a different engine so that the client and servers can be extremely optimized to handle gameplay on both PC and phone, since they want it to be cross-platform. I played during the open beta last week, and oh my god, ask anyone who played during this time, the client compared to Realm, the Realm one was insane. It was actually unfair. There was like a 5 to 10 second timer to get in the game, a 1 second load screen between dungeons, and my game was reaching up to 400 frames per second when it was uncapped. It was unbelievable compared to what I was used to. Both the Darza and the BTN dev team said their system requirements is currently approximately similar to Terraria's, which is 4 times less the requirements of Realm of the Mad God and significantly less pain. And both the dev teams said they plan to optimize the game even further. If you are a fan of the OG Realm of the Mad God, like when people were pitching for tombs and when maxing a character wasn't a joke, and when people were grinding hard for D-bows and D-blades, then this game is one you'll love. It's even got the Amis for their fame equivalent called Glory from the good old days. They're planning to make the Ami more balanced though. Both games don't have imbalanced pets as well, which is a big plus. Darza's Dominion does have pets, but they're extremely weak, mostly for cosmetics, like you do get a few stats from them. Gold can also be earned in-game by completing challenges, so basically everything can be grinded for and obtained by a free-to-play player. They even have a pity system for UTs and tiered items. An essence system exists where if you discover the essence, you can equip it and then start farming it. The respective dungeon has a chance to give you an essence on completion, and then eventually you can trade it in for the UT. Similarly, you can get the mid-tier scraps from the bosses and the highlands, and top-tier scraps from the final boss, which is called Darza, which you can trade in with an NPC for a box that rolls a random armor or weapon. They're also expanding on their crafting system. You can get parts of UTs that you can craft together. Hopefully you can make an elytra in the future. Their version of the Nexus is called the Tavern, and in general is such a cozy place to chill. It's so nice and cute. There's many parts to it, like for example, there's the part where you can get skins and items and pets, and dyes. There's no swords or abilities to be seen in the Nexus being sold for gold. There's also like a live all-time leaderboards, which shows in more detail the deaths that happened, and rewards the players with the crowns corresponding to their ranks. So like for example, if you have the highest dead glory, you get a gold crown. There's also many unreleased features, like for example, there's this storyteller feature. The Darza team wants to stay kind of secretive about that one. There's also a guild section and even more spaces for features that we can only guess what they will be, but they will appear in the future. Darza devs said they're expecting the game to be fully released around November. Though if they do need more time, don't push them so that we don't get a rushed product. There might be another open beta before that. If you want further news on what's happening with Darza, make sure to join their Discord. The link for that will also be down below. My next video should be my first look into Darza, by the way. I must also say the communication and openness to feedback with both groups of developers has been a shock to the system. I forgot that developers actually want to improve their game. The Darza devs, for example, were adding insane quality of life updates that I suggested to them while I was streaming. Like for example, they added grenade indicators and a toggle system for player transparency only a few hours after I told them they probably should. Imagine how many less sad little noobs would have died to Medusa bombs if that was in Realm of the Mad God. Also, both games have amazing OSTs. I often had to mute my music and blast the in-game volume so I could hear some tracks because I could listen to them a million times and could never get sick of them. And me in the stream would jam out every time. If you want to hear the tracks that were in the previous closed beta of Beneath the Nexus and some ones that have not yet been implemented in the game, you can subscribe to Max on Patreon. They're the composer for the game. But yeah, all in all, to be honest, because of my nostalgic connection to Realm of the Mad God, if I had to choose for one of these games to become perfect in the future, I would choose Realm of the Mad God every time. However, unless the people behind RotMG right now go through an insane change, I don't see RotMG being preferred over either of these games when they're released. There's still potential though. I'm going to be very skeptical of them in the future though because of a lot of broken promises like their attempts to tackle cheaters. But I'll still play Realm of the Mad God in the future and keep you guys updated on what's happening, even while I'm playing both Beneath the Nexus and Darza. I'm always down to check out interesting updates if they come in the future. So if you want further updates from myself, when any of the free games have developments and my thoughts on them, make sure to subscribe to me on YouTube, follow my stream on Twitch, and join my Discord. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.